So how did Norway go to 80% of new cars sold last year are EVs? How did that happen? What can we learn from them? Well, good news is the man that's about to speak won't even take credit for it. But he is a social justice activist and has been most of his life. He's an impressive guy. Please welcome Markus. I'm not going to say your middle name, but I spent 5 minutes rehearsing his last name, Rotevatn. Please to the stage.
Thank you so much, John. I didn't understand any of your jokes, but I heard they were funny. Good morning. Time is 8 o'clock in the morning for me. But it is truly an honor to be here today speaking with you. It was such a joy being invited to speak here from the Australian EV Association. When planning the trip to Australia, I realized Australia has meant a lot to me this year, my whole life. Since I was a kid, coming home from school, watching Home and Away every day, growing up, becoming a bit more serious and discovering Nick Cave and his lyrics. And now this year, what may be most important, the love of my life, Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, getting Big Ange Postecoglou as the manager. It's been amazing, mate. Fellow EV enthusiasts, my name is Markus, and together with my great colleague Helene, sitting there, we are working in partnership with the Australian EV Association in a project where we share experiences, we challenge each other and aim to drive our knowledge and efforts to new levels. It's a relatively new partnership, but we think it's already proving to be really fruitful. We are working together because the thing we're both trying to achieve is borderless. Emission in one country affects the rest of the world, and consequences of climate change are global. And no matter how proud we can be in Norway on what we have managed to achieve when it comes to electric vehicles, it doesn't mean anything if the success continues to stay an oddity in the obscure northern corner of the world. And at the same time, the potential of electrifying the transportation is huge. Where's the clicker? Is it this one? Like this? Yeah. Wow. Norway is a small country, and you are a bit larger. We have polar bears and you have kangaroos. You have nice weather, we don't. But more important, we have some similarities. And here today, I think the most important thing we have in common is that we both have an enthusiastic and visionary EV Drivers Association with the opportunity to change the world. I work in the Norwegian EV Association. We are a non-profit NGO with over 120. We are a non-profit NGO with over 120,000 members, individuals. Our members are EV drivers. They're not companies, they're people. And today we are 55 employees working in this association, serving all our members. Around 150 of those members are active volunteers in our 14 local chapters. Our purpose states we work to electrify transport as fast as possible. For us, the last part of that sentence is the most important one, because we need this change to happen fast, because the reason for why we're doing it is for the benefit of the climate and environment. And we think without an EV Drivers Association like ours and like the AEVA, there would have been a void in the national EV ecosystem. Because it's not the car manufacturers who makes it all happen. It's not nice fast charging stations who are replacing fossil fuel cars with electric ones. It's not the legislators and it's not the tech companies. They are all incredibly important, but their products and decisions will mean nothing if they're not good enough for the people who are the ones literally driving this change. Representing these people, the consumers, gives us a unique opportunity to identify the challenges, and then provide suggestions. Suggestions for decision makers and for others to make the development consumer friendly and enough to ramp up the pace of the electrification. So, what's actually happening in Norway? This is the market for new car sales in Norway today, where electric vehicles have a total market share of 83%. As you can see, the development of sales for internal combustion engine cars is rapidly decreasing. And by the way, the 17% here includes both regular and plug-in hybrids. Because when we say EV, we mean battery electric vehicles, not including plug-in hybrid vehicles. And because this is something we say, and it's important for us, because we are talking about zero emissions. This is also the government position in Norway. In 2017, the government decided on a national target stating that all new passenger cars and light vans sold in 2025 and beyond shall be zero-emission vehicles. This is a bipartisan target, broad support in Parliament. It's a goal, it's not a law, it's not a ban, so it will not be illegal to buy or sell regular internal combustion vehicles. But the government must deliver on these policies because they have set this goal. And for us, as civil society, we can use this goal as a benchmark and compare our prognosis with this benchmark so we can see if we're on the right track or not. But let's take a step back. This is how the Norwegian EV adventure started. An important part of the beginning in Norway was these two small cars, Think and Buddy. This is basically the only car industry we've had in Norway. Two strange early 1990s EVs called Think and Buddy. The Think was actually the preferred car of His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince of Norway, these early days. He's the guy on the left. And the other Royal Highness, for some at least, Jack Scarlett was, from the Fully Charged show, was in Norway to talk about how Norway killed the combustion engine in his series, and he's showing off the Buddy car there. Luckily, the industry have been doing their part since then. Even if the Think and Buddy don't exist anymore, we now have 106 different models registered in Norway last year. So the possibilities and the opportunities are huge. This is how it looks like driving an EV in Norway at this moment. The cars are as any other cars, suitable for every purpose. Like this EV, towing a snowmobile in the far north of Norway with Arctic temperatures, mountain passes, and long distances. And here we have a map of the EV sales per county, because we say 100% EVs, that's our goal. We need to have 100% in every county, everywhere. Everybody who's buying a new car needs to buy an EV. The first you'll notice is the regions we're closing in on, Hordaland and Oslo. They're not surprisingly the most populated areas as well. But the equally good news can be found all the way up in the north, where you found Finnmark, which is also where the photo from the last slide was from. It's the northernmost county, way above the Arctic Circle. Over half of the new passenger vehicles bought last year was battery electric. And to just put it into context, it's a county with the same population density as Western Australia. The only difference is that we don't have any big cities in that county, like Perth. So people are spread widely, and the temperatures may find their way below 25 degrees during winter. And winter lasts for 6 to 8 months. Some would say 12. So that was the snapshot of where we are today. But let's look at how did this happen and why did it happen. And let's just begin by stating maybe the obvious but still most important fact. It happened because of policies. It happened because we have had policies that made EVs more affordable and able to compete on price when people are choosing what type of new car they want to buy. We have had no purchase tax on EVs. At the same time, internal combustion engine vehicles have had a high purchase tax. There has been zero value-added tax on EVs. Internal combustion engine vehicles has to pay, or when you buy one, you have to pay 25% VAT. And we also had policies incentivizing the everyday use of an EV. For many years, the toll road companies weren't allowed to claim any fees for EVs passing in the toll roads of Norway. As the numbers of EVs have grown, especially in these areas where the toll rings are more common, the government has opened up for the possibility of charging 70% of what the fossil fuel cars are paying in the toll roads. But still, there's a difference, and should always be a difference. These decisions, however, is also decided locally, in local municipalities and in counties, and it's still possible for a local decision to let EVs pass free of charge if they see it necessary in their area. EVs has also enjoyed 50% discount on ferries compared to other vehicles. Ferries is a very important part of transportation along our western coast because we have incredibly many fjords that we have to pass. There's also been discounted parking fees for EVs and access to bus lanes. The Norwegian EV policy package has been exactly a package with different measures that has made EVs desirable for a broad spectrum of people. Some need one policy to be convinced, and some other need another policy to be convinced. So you have to make several policies to make a package that will work for everybody. And the most important reason why this package works is because all the policies are based on one important understanding. Most people are not deciding their modes of transportation because of global awareness, engagement, climate change, technological fascination. They're simply choosing the car with their wallets. When we map the EV drivers through our annual survey, with more than 15,000 responding EV drivers every year, it has been crystal clear from the beginning that economy and low cost is the main motivation for most EV drivers in their decision to start driving an EV. Sorry about that. Norwegians are not more environmentally friendly than other people in the world. Actually, it's quite the opposite. Studies show that a significant smaller share of Norwegians believe climate change is affected by human activities than what the other people in the European countries are thinking. It has been beneficial to choose an EV when buying a new car in Norway, and that's why people have chosen EVs. And the importance of the economical factor have also increased as we have moved from the early movers to the mass market. So because the policies are making EVs able to compete with ICE cars, people now buys a new car and decides to go electric. And then what? They seem to become the most happy consumer group in the world. In the Norwegian EV driver survey, almost everybody tells that they're satisfied with the change. So we have actually managed to create a policy that changes people's behavior in a very central part of their everyday life to take part in the green transition, even if they couldn't care less about that, and still be satisfied. I challenge all of you to find an example of any other policy that also does that. So let's move on. What else do we know about our EV drivers? Almost all have access to charging at home. This is normal in Norway. We live in housings, most of us. And we also know that roughly 80% of all charging happens at home. Home charging is important and obviously a key to success. But let's focus on something else, the fast charging first. I think we need to charge this as well. Most EV drivers use fast charging. but not that often. Fast charging is mostly used for longer trips, and those doesn't happen that often. But it isn't to say that these are extremely important. People need to be able to take those longer trips and need to be able to fast charge. The first thing we did in Norway was to secure an initial fast charging network on the main transportation corridors. This was a good start, and it was, in the early days, partly funded between the operators and public finance. Today, the market has taken over the development because fast charging has become commercially viable. In total, Norway has spent about 50 million Australian dollars on fast charging, and we have around 6,000 fast chargers available. Most of them built later without public funding. So if we do a little calculation, it will be around 8,000 public Australian dollars per fast charger. That's not much. And that price will become lower for each new commercially funded fast charger built. As the EV Drivers Association, we would recommend that if you do anything similar like this, have a set of criteria to receive funding. For example, station size, universal payment solutions, and so on. We started with smaller stations, and we think it would be wise to plan for expansion from the start so that you already constructed stations that can expand when the demand increases. And maybe this is also one of the mistakes we did in Norway that we should learn from. It's almost impossible to build too many fast chargers. The demand will come, and it will come fast. Don't build just 1 or 2 chargers at one location, like we did. This strategy resulted in a situation a couple of years ago. Everybody went on holiday with their cars, and I spent 3 hours in the longest charging congestion. And I had even some trips where I calculated I used more time in congestion waiting to charge than actually driving. And with 2 beautiful but still demanding kids in the back seat, this is a challenge. It was almost killing the joy of being an EV driver. And I'm pretty sure these friends on the photo here also thinks back to the beautiful days of filling up the tank in 5 minutes and moving on. The charger is behind the trees there, the 2 chargers. And if you count the cars, you will see that they are at least going to wait for 3 another hours before they can start charging. But together with the EV drivers, we raised awareness, and the charge operators are now starting to impress us. Soon they are starting to impress us. There. Look at this. This is what's happening in Norway now. All gas stations are removing their gasoline and diesel pumps and replacing them with fast chargers. New stations like this one are now labeled as energy stations, and they're building chargers as their main product. It's impressive at first glance, but if you look at it really, you see where you entered with a car, and what's the first thing you see? It's the chargers. They're on the roof, they're nice, and if you happen to have a fossil-driven car, you have to go all the way to the back to find those pumps. They also have a quite large battery and energy storage solution together with solar panels to balance the energy and the effect for the busiest hour. We're seeing more and more stations like this popping up in Norway, and it's both, of course, very cool, but it's also stopping the problem about congestions, because we have enough chargers at one place so you can be assured that you actually reach a charger when you come to the station. Still, EV drivers want to charge when the car is parked. We saw that in the beginning. People charge at home. And this is not a challenge for those living at home, but in municipalities where people are living in high-rise buildings, in apartment blocks, it can be a challenge. Municipalities in Norway have accepted that if they want people to change to EVs, they need to provide public charging for those who park in the streets. Mostly AC charging, curbside. It's a very nice thing for people living without parking to have that opportunity. It's important, it's key. But in addition to those curbside charge points, some municipalities have also looked into public-private partnerships and creative ways to find solutions, like offering to construct and operate charge points at shopping mall garages with proximity to where people are living, so that during daytime when the mall is open, the mall can provide charging for the consumers or for the customers. But at nighttime, when people who are living in those areas who wants to charge at nighttime, because that's when they park the car, they can get access to that garage because it's closed, there's no customers, and they can use that at the nighttime. Then you get a very efficient charging system. And for people living in apartment buildings, the government also have developed especially 2 sets of legislation that has been important. The right to charge, saying that the board of a housing association cannot deny any EV driver to install a charger at his or her parking spot, unless they have what actually the law says, a very, very rational reason to do so, basically. But still, there's no many rational reasons to do that. So we have experienced that law is functioning. The other set of legislation is that all new buildings being built with parking space need to make the parking spaces charge ready, meaning that all the infrastructure is ready so that you can just put up a charging box when you're moving in. We've also seen the importance of the same way as people like to charge when they're parked at home, they like to charge when the car is parked when they're traveling. Because nobody really likes to fast charge. It takes time, and you gain some weight because you eat something when you're doing it, and all of these things. Travelers love to be able to charge overnight at a hotel rather than stop at the fast charging station when they're on the way. A good slow charging offer from the hotel will make it cheaper and more convenient for the driver. It will be better for the battery health on the car and potentially more lucrative for the hotel owner. These destination charge points also remove some of the pressure on the fast charging network, as they tend to replace 1 or 2 fast charging sessions of a long distance EV traveler. And not least, it's also good news for those concerned with grid capacity. Popular travel destinations in Norway does not necessarily have high developed electricity grids, but making the traveler charge at a lower effect during night when capacity is less challenged, rather than making them charge at a high effect on fast chargers during daytime, is a great solution in places where peak hours are difficult. Something else that can be difficult is the charging experience itself. Because charging is not only about how many chargers we have, even though most EV drivers find it quite easy to charge, the customer relations and the payment solutions can be very challenging. More than 4 out of 5 of our EV drivers find the number of charging operators and apps complicated. And almost 9 out of 10 want the opportunity to pay with card, contactless payment. I remember one of our members said once, "I can use my card to access the public toilet in the city park, but I cannot pay for the power on my car." His way of saying it was a bit more vulgar. I'm not going to repeat it, but you get the point. Everything can be paid with a card except charging in Norway. Also, as I said earlier, identify, challenge, and find a solution. That's what we need to do, and we did. So what's happened was we went together with the EV drivers, we fought, and we won. We started to talk about fast charging as critical infrastructure for society. You cannot leave such critical resources in the hands or in the apps of a company. Commonly accepted payment methods needs to be available. And we showed the numbers. 8 out of 9 EV drivers want the opportunity for contactless payment. And the parliament decided this summer that the card payment solution is now mandatory on fast charging stations. This is also now installed in all new stations and will be retrofitted within 2026 on old ones. My advice to you, just do this before you have thousands of fast chargers that needs retrofitting. because this is important from the beginning, but it will be even more important when your average Joes are starting to buy EVs. This app jungle will not be accepted. We have prioritized working with cars, and it has been a discussion today. We have done that because we, first of all, need to focus our resources as an association, and because our theory have always been that we need to make one part of transportation 100% electric. We need to show it's possible, and then the rest will follow. And that's exactly what we see now. At the moment, 913 electric heavy-duty vehicles are transporting our goods in Norway. That's around 1% of all of them. 400 of them came this year. It might happen really fast here as well. At the moment, we see an 11% market share in the heavy-duty segment. This includes really large vans. And the development is led by big logistic companies, but we also see that the smaller companies are seeing the benefits. We work at the moment to ensure that the government is accompanying and reinforcing this development by an own charging strategy for heavy-duty vehicles, because we need to look at this a bit different than the regular market. This is also a question about the EV drivers, because you don't want the fast charging stations for the regular EV drivers to be filled up with a lot of heavy trucks. It's both irritating, and it's also a question of security and safety for example, my two kids in the back seat. Also, when it comes to public transportation, ferries and buses, things are really starting to happen in Norway, and maybe it's an I should say it has happened in Norway. Next year, all of public transportation in Oslo, our capital, will be zero emission. That includes the many ferries like this one on the photo. And this summer, Oslo could declare that all the buses in the city, it's not a big city, but it's 1 million, so it's not like nothing. All of the buses already became electric this year, 2 years before their own target. We didn't work much with that. Some organizations might have touched into it, but this happened because everything else was electrified. Everything, when the cars became electric, it's natural to look at other parts of the transportation. But what needed policies, what needed a push from the EV Association was the personal vehicle fleet. That needed to be changed, and that needed heavy policy to make the consumer change. And then everything else changes with it. So, this is where we are now. It takes a long time to change an entire fleet. This is why we talk about new car market when we talk about the measures for how development is going, because that's the way you can see how the fleet is changing and how fast the fleet is changing. But even with 83% of the new car market being electric, we still only have 22% of our car fleet electric. So 8 out of 10 passing me on the street is still running on fossil fuel. So we have a long way to go.